We're going to go to Utah County where Michael has a question about, let's just make sure. He has a question about gun control. Michael, you're on the line with Senator Lee.
Hello, Michael.
With every mass shooting, there are always claims for more gun control. In fact, President Obama is requesting that now, although we find that the majority of gun violence has nothing to do that wouldn't be affected by the gun control laws that are proposed. And in fact, the majority of them happen in gun-free zones where law-abiding citizens are disarmed and then become victims. In fact, nearly all but two in the last 20 or 30 years have happened in gun-free zones. What can we do to eliminate gun-free zones to enable people to have the right to defend themselves?
Okay, thank you for raising this question, Michael. You know, I was at the White House just the morning after the San Bernardino attacks took place. I was there at the White House with a bipartisan group of senators talking about a criminal justice reform bill that I've been working on with the president. While we were in there, the president had us briefed on what information had been gained from these attacks. And the president himself acknowledged to us in that meeting that these guns were lawfully obtained. The guns used by this husband and wife terrorism duo had obtained these guns lawfully. Everything about it was legal. Everything about it was lawful in the way that they obtained them. So you're correct in pointing out that very often the calls for new legislation are beside the point because they wouldn't have solved the act of terrorism or the act of violence in question. That was certainly the case here. The touchstone that I always use when I'm reviewing legislation that's put forward that promises somehow to make the American people safer by restricting the process by which Americans acquire or use guns is, what will this do for law-abiding citizens? What does this do to law-abiding citizens who simply want to possess and use firearms for lawful, legitimate purposes? This, by the way, is based on and similar to the standard used by the United States Supreme Court when reviewing challenges based on the Second Amendment. So when I look at that question, very often I see that many legislative proposals that are brought forward would do a whole lot to restrict the rights of the law-abiding, but would do little or nothing to actually make the American people safer, would do little or nothing to deter or prevent people who are bent on engaging in acts of violence from actually carrying out their evil thoughts and their evil plans, their evil designs. So that's what we always have to start with, is what will this do to the law-abiding and what will it do to those who are bent on breaking the law? We have to remember that every single time one of these horrific acts is carried out, there are a whole bunch of laws that are being violated, a whole lot of them. And we have to wonder about the wisdom of thinking that every time someone breaks a law, the answer to fixing that problem is passing another law. We have to remember also that guns may well outnumber people in this country. And unlike other countries that have decided to just ban them altogether, we have a Second Amendment that protects the right of the people to bear arms. And moreover, even if we didn't, even if that somehow evaporated, it is physically impossible, not to mention the fact that it would be very undesirable, to simply confiscate and collect or buy back all of those guns. It's not going to work in this country, and it shouldn't work. And this touches on the point that you raise. One of the many reasons why the Second Amendment is a good idea, one of the reasons why we need the Second Amendment and have benefited from it and can benefit from it even more, is that it allows the people to protect themselves from the unlawful actions of a select few who might abuse their privilege or their status as U.S. citizens in order to harm others. I think we need to look for ways every day to enhance gun rights rather than limit them, for the simple reason that guns can protect us. Guns, when they're in the hands of the law-abiding, can be used to defeat those who are bent on violence, either for purposes of terror or from some senseless person, for some senseless reason that has nothing to do with logic or reason. I think you'll see increasingly that within the zone of private property, where people have chosen no longer to allow firearms, I think you'll see a lot of people revisiting those decisions. You saw a university president in Virginia just a few days ago suggesting that it might be a good idea for students who have a concealed carry permit to carry their weapons with them, so that if something bad happens, perhaps on the campus of that particular college, there could be somebody to counteract the violence that would otherwise take place there that day. I think you'll see a lot more of the public policy discussion shifting in precisely this direction, simply because the American people need the protection that can come from the American people being able to exercise their Second Amendment rights in an uninhibited manner. The Second Amendment isn't just a good idea, it also happens to be part of the U.S. Constitution. And like so many other provisions, this is a provision that, when honored, will protect the American people.